This week on The Watchman, Israel was never a Jewish state. Solomon and Herod's temples never existed. And Jesus was a Palestinian. These are just some of the lies being spread today about Israel.
We have the best weapon in our hands, which is the truth. It's just a matter of telling it.
Former Israeli ambassador Danny Ayalon joins us to set the record straight about the Jewish state. Plus, we get an exclusive look at some of the amazing archaeological discoveries that back up Israel's biblical claim to Jerusalem. It's The Watchman. It's Christians United for Israel only on TBN. And welcome to The Watchman from TBN's Jerusalem studio. Well, if you read the newspapers and you watch the news on a regular basis, you may think a few things. Number one, that Israel is a racist nation. Number two, that it is illegally occupying Arab and Muslim land. And number three, that the Jewish people have no historical claim and no historical roots in the land I am standing in right now. Well, there's the popular narrative, and then there is the truth. And a man named Jesus said that when you know the truth, it will set you free. Well, we here at Christians United for Israel are in the truth-telling business when it comes to Israel and the Jewish people. That's why today on The Watchman, we are setting the record straight. Here is just some of what we are up against. After the horrors of World War II and the Holocaust, the United Nations was supposedly founded to promote peace, justice, and human rights. Yet the UN has passed more resolutions against Israel than it has brutal tyrannies like North Korea and Iran.
I've actually chaired hearings how the Human Rights Council absolutely disproportionately focuses on Israel and gives a pass to China, North Korea, Sudan, and Iran, and many other countries that have committed heinous human rights abuses.
The latest outrage is a resolution by the UN's Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, or UNESCO for short. UNESCO recently passed a resolution denying any Jewish connection to the Temple Mount. It referred to the site only by its Muslim name, Haram al-Sharif, and called Israel the occupying power. There was no mention of the two Jewish temples that stood on the site during biblical times.
You find there, in the digs, archaeological digs of two, not just one, the two Jewish temples. The first Jewish temple that was built by King Solomon, and the second temple that was built over there and stayed until 70 AD, until the Romans destroyed it.
The movement to deny that there was ever a Jewish presence on the Temple Mount, the holiest site in Judaism, is just one of a growing number of falsehoods against Israel that are gaining traction at the UN and beyond. Now, when it comes to Israel and the truth, I can't think of a better truth teller than Israel's former ambassador to the United States, Danny Ayalon. Ambassador Ayalon is also Israel's former deputy foreign minister, and right now he is working on a great video series called, you guessed it, The Truth About Israel. Now, before we get into our interview with Ambassador Ayalon, I wanted to give you a taste of some of the great work he is doing. Take a look.
Palestine was the Greco-Roman name for a region along the Mediterranean Sea, which included Judea, Samaria, and areas which are today in Lebanon, Jordan, and Syria. But like Antarctica, the Amazons, or Sahara, naming a place doesn't create a nation of Antarcticans or Saharans. In the year 135 AC, the name of the region became the official name of one of the provinces of the Roman Empire, in a failed attempt to obliterate the connection between the Jewish people and Judea, the land they had inhabited since roughly the 13th century BC, almost 1,500 years before.
Well, Ambassador Ayalon, thanks so much for joining us today here on The Watchman.
Good to be with you, Eric.
Tell us first of all about your great video series, The Truth About Israel.
When I retired from government, I realized that the vulnerability that Israel has is in the public arena. And diplomatic war which the Palestinians have waged against us, incitement.
Very effectively.
BDS, a lot of blood libels, basically. My strategy was, first of all, the message. We have to have a very clear message. I mean, we have many messages, but one that has to be the principal message, out of which all other messages can come. And the message is very simple, Eric. The land, Zion, the land of Israel, belongs to the Jewish people as the Jewish people belongs to the land of Israel. Full stop. I mean, it's not just a matter of prophecy, it's not just a matter of biblical truth. Right. It can be measured, and it is measured and by archaeological digs, by history. Yeah. All the facts show to it. We have seen the BDS, the boycott, the divestment, sanctions. We saw all the blood libels, the incitements against Israel working in Europe. Europe in 35 years ago was like the United States today. Mostly these are democratic countries, so their affinity would be with a sister democracy like the State of Israel. However, for the last 35 years, the Palestinians have been working very, very hard in European campuses, in European public opinion circles, everywhere that they could, to the extent that today, after 35 years, we have lost Europe. The Europeans are siding with the Palestinians.
What a stunning statement, Ambassador, and what an accurate statement. Sadly accurate. We have lost Europe.
It's not only because of the growing Islamic population in Europe, which of course has also a contribution to the Israeli hatred or American hatred, but it's also because of the very, very dedicated campaign, well-financed campaign, targeted campaign of the Palestinians and their collaborators in Europe. Now, having won Europe, they go to the next prize, which is the big prize, is the United States. So what we see now, although it's few and far between organizations that are calling for boycott Israel, you hear about the American Studies Association or the Anthropological Association, or unfortunately the Presbyterian Church or United Methodist. It doesn't come out of thin air. It comes because of methodical, systematic incitement by the Palestinians. And this is where we have to learn from the past. Not to be passive about it like we were in the last 35 years in Europe, but to be there and answer and meet any and all the lies. Because we have the best weapon in our hands, which is the truth. It's just a matter of telling it.
Tell us some of the great things that are going on in Israel right now, scientific, high-tech, medical, etc.
High-tech, today, we are the startup nation. We are innovating. We are a big R&D center for all major corporations, high-tech corporations in the world. And actually, we take great pride of being a light unto the nation, to make a net contribution to society. And you can find it with technology like with the CAT scans technology and MRI, all the medical the development, medical equipment, pharmaceutical saving lives that is being discovered or invented right here in Israel, and we continue to do that. Unfortunately, we found ourselves in a situation that we have been attacked. So the first obligation we have is to defend ourselves, to defend our values, to defend our way of lives, and in a way, we do it not just for the Jewish people and for the democratic state of Israel. We do it for the entire Western world, for the entire Judeo-Christian heritage. We are here in the trenches, I think, for all humanity. And this is why we take, with great satisfaction, the unconditional support that we get from the United States and the American people. Because I think most of Americans understand that the way Israel goes, so does the entire Judeo-Christian civilization.
You're the first line of defense for Western civilization.
And so we will continue to do that. We don't have any other choice. This is our only home, and we will continue to defend it. But at the same time, we will not just be busy with defense, but also with creating better agriculture, better technology, better literature, and better culture for all humanity.
It's an amazing thing. Ambassador Ayalon, thank you so much, and thank you so much for your contributions to that cause.
Thank you.
Well, one of the myths that's starting to gain traction against Israel is that a temple never existed on the Temple Mount, which you see over my shoulder right now. So to set the record straight, we're joined by one of Israel's top archaeologists after the break, and what he has found regarding the Jewish presence on the Temple Mount will amaze you. That's coming up after the break. It's the Watchman. It's Christians United for Israel, only right here on TBN, setting the record straight.
Centuries-old churches and monasteries burnt to the ground, Christian villages ransacked, women and children enslaved, and believers in Jesus led to their deaths. ISIS has declared an all-out war on Christians. Believers in the Middle East outside of Israel are suffering horrible persecution. Christians United for Israel will not remain silent as Islamic extremists carry out a genocide against our brothers and sisters in Christ. On Capitol Hill, CUFI is working hard to ensure America's allies receive the aid they need to defeat ISIS. CUFI is leading a Raise Your Voice campaign to bring the issue front and center for Christians across America. Visit our website, cufi.org, to find out how you can stand with CUFI as we stand up for the persecuted church. If not us, who? And if not now, when?
And welcome back to the Watchman from TBN's Jerusalem studio. Well, when it comes to Israeli archaeology, Dr. Gabriel Barkai is a legend. Right now, he's in charge of the Temple Mount Sifting Project, and over the past few years, he has made some amazing discoveries that prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that the Temple Mount, yes, was once home to Solomon's Temple, to Herod's Temple, and much more when it comes to Israel and the Jewish people. Take a look.
Now, the present day of the shape of the Temple Mount was given to it, the general framework around the Temple Mount was given to it by King Herod the Great some 2,000 years ago. That is, according to tradition, the place of the binding of Isaac. That is the place of the threshing floor of Aravna the Jebusite purchased by King David. That is the place where his son Solomon built the house of the Lord. And that is the place of the second temple built by the returnees to Zion from the Babylonian captivity. The Temple Mount is the soul, heart, and spirit of the Jewish people.
Now, Dr. Barkai, just to give the viewer an idea of how important the Temple Mount is, the Jewish people believe that God's presence literally dwelled on the Temple Mount, right?
And never left it. The idea of belief in one God, one dynasty, the House of David, and those two residing in one place, Jerusalem, that is one of the essential points of the days of Prophet Isaiah. And it started then with the house of the Lord being the only possible place where God can be worshipped. In 691 of the Common Era, a most magnificent building was erected upon the Temple Mount. That is the Dome of the Rock, which was meant to be a replacement of Solomon's temple. His son, Al-Walid, built the mosque next to it, the Al-Aqsa Mosque. This situation of the Dome of the Rock and Al-Aqsa Mosque, which lasted for centuries upon the Temple Mount, was breached in the 1990s. This enormous white area here is the roof over the great mosque, the subterranean mosque, which was added in the 1990s. 2 years later, In 1998, yet another mosque was built underneath the Al-Aqsa Mosque in a passageway, subterranean passageway, which led the pilgrims up towards the temple in some 2,000 years ago. That is today known as the Mosque of the Ancient Aqsa. Together with these construction works, that we have already 4 edifices of the Muslims upon the Temple Mount, there was a change of the ideology. Instead of the noble sanctuary, the name Muslims used for the Temple Mount, they began to use the name Al-Aqsa for the entire Temple Mount and not only for the mosque. Simultaneously, they began to spread the idea of the temple denial. There was no temple, neither of Solomon nor Second Temple. There was no temple in Jerusalem ever. 400 truckloads of soil saturated with the history of Jerusalem were removed from the Temple Mount and dumped into the Kidron Valley. You can see here the dumps at the Kidron Valley.
And tell our viewers again, Doctor, who did this?
It was carried out by the Islamic Waqf, the trust that runs daily matters upon the Temple Mount.
Yeah.
Now,
with no authorization to do so. They took it upon themselves to, basically an attempt to bury the Jewish history of the Temple Mount. 2
of my students those days, they followed the trucks and found the place where the dumping took place, and they urged me to start a project for sifting. I got the approval of the university authorities, who asked the Antiquities Authority for a permission. After long bureaucracy and after long deliberations, we got the permission. And so about 11 and a half years ago, we started this project. We have had until now approximately 250,000 volunteers who carry out the work of the sifting. They follow in the footsteps of the book of Psalms, saying that thy servants have cherished thy stones and loved thy earth. To see the excitement in the eyes of kids touching the holy soil of the Temple Mount and finding a coin which didn't see light for 2,000 years, it is really touching.
Coming up after the break, you'll get an up-close look at some of those amazing finds from Bible times as the Temple Mount Sifting Project takes us inside their groundbreaking archaeological work. It's The Watchman. It's Christians United for Israel, only on TBN.
Israel's fight is our fight. We are one. We are united. We will not be discouraged. We will not be defeated. We will not be intimidated. We will not sit down. We will not be silent. We are the worst nightmare of the anti-Semites of the world. The victory is going to be ours.
Join the largest pro-Israel organization in the U.S. for the 2016 CUFI Summit in Washington, D.C., July 18th and 19th. You will hear numerous experts and have an opportunity to meet face-to-face with your government representatives and express your support for Israel. Visit our website, cufi.org, and register today for the 2016 CUFI Summit in Washington, D.C.
We have had until now hundreds of thousands of finds, bridging over a range of periods totaling in 15,000 years, from flint implements of hunters-gatherers until modern times. But the most significant finds are from First Temple period and on. We have from First Temple period an arrow used by the army of Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, who destroyed the First Temple. We have from First Temple period abundance of finds, enormous quantities, and this is just one example of a ceiling on a small lump of clay with the name of the house of Immer in ancient Hebrew script. The Immer family was a priestly dynasty which is mentioned in the Bible. They were the 17th course of the priestly courses taking care of the worship in the temple. We have here a coin of half a shekel. The half shekel, it's a silver coin. The half shekel is the amount paid by every male as temple taxes. This coin was minted upon the Temple Mount, and we have here the year, Aleph, which says it is 6667 of the Common Era.
Now, this is a very exciting portion of our tour here, Dr. Barkai. This is where the sifting happens. Tell us about where we're at right now and what goes on here.
The sifting actually is made up of two parts. The initial sifting is carried out here. It is dry sifting, which is removal of heavy stuff, larger stones, and modern garbage, which is mixed with the soil. And this place prepares the material for the volunteers who carry out the work underwater, a wet sifting inside the greenhouse where we do the work. So these piles, which were brought over from the Kidron Valley, they are each of them numbered. They were covered with plastic sheets in order to avoid vegetation growing upon them. And each of them, we know where it came from in the dumps, but we do not know the exact location upon the Temple Mount.
That was the Islamic authorities there who intentionally dumped those materials. And now you, here at the Temple Mount Sifting Project, are recovering them and bringing them here and going through and finding some great historical artifacts.
Yes, we regard it as a salvage operation. We save information which otherwise would be lost forever. The Temple Mount was never ever excavated before. Not even a single potsherd was published from the Temple Mount through the last 150 years of archaeology in Jerusalem. So this is the closest that we can come to an archaeological excavation upon the Temple Mount. This is the main area of the sifting project. Here the volunteers do the wet sifting, and from here we have the hundreds of thousands of finds. And this is the main scene of the sifting project. We actually collect everything, whatever was made by man, used by man, or whatever testifies about man's environment in the past. We can go over and have a look and see what they find. This is a glass mosaic, early Arabic period.
How do you know that? Just from looking, from years of study?
I know them well. But he had just a discovery now. Where is it? Wow. A coin. This is a green button, which is unfortunately a bit broken, but from the slanting slopes of the flan, one can say for sure that it is the Jerusalem Mint. It is 2,000 years old, Second Temple period.
You're making finds like this on a regular basis with the Temple Mount Sifting Project.
We had 2 coins already today. Altogether, we have approximately over 6,000.
What an amazing experience, ladies and gentlemen, to see history come alive, biblical history, the history of Israel and the Jewish people, and so much more. The history of the Temple Mount, so important in many ways in terms of what's going on today. And we're going to hear much more about it, I think, in the days to come. That's why the Temple Mount Sifting Project is so important. Well, more after the break about the facts on the ground regarding Jerusalem. Stick around. It's the Watchman, only right here on TBN.
We see it all over the internet, newspapers, and television as terror groups like ISIS, Hezbollah, and Hamas terrorize Israel. Each year, the threat increases and intensifies. Will you pray for Israel? Will you confront government officials on behalf of Israel and the Jewish people? How will you answer God if you choose to do nothing?
To see evil and not call it evil is evil. Not to speak is to speak. Not to act is to act. God will not hold us harmless. Stand up and speak up and do it now.
Join KUFA, where 2.5 million Christians across the U.S. are working together to defend Israel in our classrooms, churches, and communities. They have an active presence in over 300 college campuses and mobilize their members to communicate pro-Israel perspectives to elected officials. Visit our website, cufi.org.
And welcome back to the Watchman from TBN's Jerusalem studio. You know, the Nazi minister of propaganda, the notorious Joseph Goebbels, believed in a concept called the big lie. He believed that if you told a big lie often enough and continued to repeat it, people would eventually come to believe it. And guess what? In Nazi Germany, they did. It led to the Holocaust and 6 million Jews dead. And today, we have a series of big lies being repeated, folks, about Israel and the Jewish people. We outlined some of them for you today, that Israel has no claim to this land, that it's a racist occupier. We have Hamas, Hezbollah, the Iranian regime, even the UN and some Western diplomats repeating these lies. But here's the good news. In the Bible, in the book of Psalms, King David writes, "Send out your light and your truth. Let them lead me. Let them bring me to your holy hill and to your dwelling." You know, God is truth. God is love, and God loves his people and his land. So join with us here at Christians United for Israel. Join the movement as we stand with Israel and stand for the truth and set the record straight. Thanks for joining us here on The Watchman this week from TBN's Jerusalem studio. God bless you, and remember, never hold your peace.